Hi, good afternoon. This is Sheri Greenawald, the artistic director for the Merola Opera Program. And we're here this afternoon to have a master chat with none other than mezzo-soprano, fabulous mezzo-soprano, Miss Susan Graham. Hello, Susan.
Hello. Hi,
Hello.
how's everybody doing?
Well, I assume most people know you, but if they don't, they should know you hail from Midland, Texas.
Well, I was born in Roswell, New Mexico.
But born in Roswell, and you're sitting in New Mexico right now, are you not?
I am. I'm in Las Cruces, New Mexico, at the home of my lovely sister and my mother, and just sort of hanging out in 105-degree temperature. Thank God for air conditioning.
Gracious me. Well, where the heck is Texas Tech University, where you graduated with a BA?
It's in Lubbock.
It's in Lubbock, Texas.
It's in Lubbock, and I graduated with a BM and an MM. I was there for a bachelor's and a master's of music. Yeah.
Wow.
It's in Lubbock. It's, you know, I when I was 12 years old, we moved to Midland, which is in West Texas, and Lubbock is exactly 2 hours north of Midland. So far enough away, close enough to home.
Did you take your laundry home?
Let's see, when I got a chance. But the idea was not to try and go home too much. That was
okay. Yeah, that was me too, for sure. And so then how did you end up at Manhattan School of Music?
Well, by the time I finished my 5-year undergrad, you know, I did a lot of operas. So, you know, not much time for coursework. And then I wasn't finished with my voice teacher, and I had a great voice teacher there, Mary Gillis. And so I decided to stay on with her for another 2 years of a master's. And by the time I'd been 7 years in Lubbock, Texas, I was ready to go someplace else. And I had a bunch of friends who had already moved to New York, and I'd gone to visit them on spring break, whatever. But the real reason I went to Manhattan School of Music, I didn't even audition at Juilliard, I didn't audition at any place else, just Manhattan, was because my lifelong dream was to sing at the Santa Fe Opera. And I knew that John Crosby, the founder of the Santa Fe Opera, was president of Manhattan School of Music at that time. So I thought, if I have to go from Texas via New York to get back into Santa Fe, I would do it.
Well, that is long-term planning, my dear.
Well, you know, I was just thinking that it would be, you know, a good excuse to go to New York. I'd get good training. I'd be in New York. I'd be in the scene. And then maybe I'd end up in Santa Fe in some way. And so I auditioned twice. You know, I auditioned twice for the apprentice program, and I was rejected twice for the apprentice program. So all you young artists out there who are listening, you know, I didn't get into Santa Fe, but I did get into Merola.
That was even better. Yay. Yeah. One thing, though, happened at Texas Tech that was rather important later in your life was that you met someone rather special at Texas Tech. Did you not?
I did. Well, you know, there was this brash young theater student who rode around town on a motorcycle and was always too busy working at his jobs to really hang out with us very much. But the rare times he would make an appearance at a party was always very special. And so 30 years later, I married him. He's my husband now, Clay Brakely.
Yes. So that was a rather important event that happened there, I'd say.
Yes, it was a good contact to make back in those days. Yeah.
That's right. Well, one of my favorite stories about you was how we had been doing Traviata, I think, in Santa Fe together.
Oh my gosh, that was my first show in Santa Fe.
Yes. So
Flora Amici. Yes, that was Flora.
Yes, there's a Flora. There's my Flora. And so I think, wasn't it after that summer that we met up at the nail place in New York City? We were having our nails done together by accident. We both ended up at the same nail salon, and we were having our nails done. And you were telling me about a place to go get gowns in New York, and you were on your way. That was when you were on your way to Salzburg to do Meg.
Oh my
summer.
gosh. You have a much better memory than I do.
No, I don't think so. I'm older than you too, girl. Okay.
I know, but I lived so much of my life in terror during those years that I don't remember any of the interstitial parts of life, like going to nail salons, because I was just freaking out the whole time.
But you were on your way. I remember because that was a big event. You went to Salzburg.
I probably told you to go get gown. I probably was telling you to go get a gown at Kleinfeld's.
That was probably it.
Because that's where I got the gown that I wore to the Met finals. When I won the Met finals,
Yeah.
I didn't know where to get a gown. So I went to Kleinfeld's, which is, you know, bridal central. But I got this, and I had this royal blue gown and exactly the same color as another finalist who was on stage at the same time. And her name was Renee Fleming. And we had on matching cobalt blue gowns and matching hair this big, because, you know, it was the 80s. What can I tell you? Very funny.
So you went to Salzburg, and that sort of started things rolling really big, right?
Yeah. I was in Salzburg nearly every summer in the 90s. It was everything to be singing Mozart in Mozart's hometown. But you know, Santa Fe Opera, I've been to Santa Fe Opera several seasons before that Salzburg period started. And I always said Santa Fe was like opera camp, you know, as you know, and Salzburg was like international opera camp on steroids, because all of our friends, you know, who were there, when you're not rehearsing, you're at the beer garden and you're riding your bike and you're rollerblading all over town and you're going to visit Mozart's birth house and you're going to, you know, you're living this life on this plane that's just like almost unimaginable, but you're doing it with all your best friends. So it's just so much fun. And it sort of tempers the pressure of the situation, because also then you're going swimming in lakes and playing golf, and it just sort of makes it all seem very balanced somehow.
I know festivals are always fun that way, because you get to spend a longer period of time and there are more than just you there. There are other casts to mingle with.
And everybody's there for the same amount of time. So you get, I mean, lifelong friendships.
Exactly.
Like you.
One of my favorite memories, again, being with you, was our Figaro in Santa Fe as you told me this afternoon, in 91. I'll get that date correct. And it was Bryn Terfel's first Figaro in the United States. I think it might have been his first Figaro period, wasn't it?
It was his first Figaro and his American debut. This 25-year-old kid, powerhouse.
Kid. And Mike Devlin was our count, and it was Heidi Grant at the time, because she was not yet married to Kevin Murphy, because they were getting married at the end of the summer.
And it was her first Susanna, and she also was only 25.
I know, she was a baby. And Ado was in the pit.
That's right, conducted by Ado DeVart. Yep.
Conducted by Ado. And that was just, and John Cox was our director.
It was beautiful.
I
sent you that picture. Do we have that picture?
They sent it out to the whole invited crowd. It went out.
Oh, okay. All right. The picture where I'm kneeling in front of you singing Voi che sapete.
That was a hot moment, I remember.
It was really cool. And I loved that costume that I had. My costume, I didn't care about yours, but I loved my
well, I did think my red kimono was a little odd in that second act, but never mind.
Yeah, well, I had on cream colored 4-ply silk pants, trousers that went into knee-high boots. I felt like a very hot boy. You were. Thank you. Well, thank you very much.
And yes, that was one of our things. But there was something else about that summer that was very important. And it had to do with a little small black bundle named Liberty Bell.
My Libby. Oh yeah, I had for those of you who might not know, I had a little black toy poodle who went everywhere with me for her long life of 18 years. And she was the opera mascot of our whole generation. And you know, she was so well known that even when I would check into a hotel for the third or fourth time of the same city, they'd say, "Oh, hello, Miss Graham. Is Libby with you?" I mean, I was like, "Yeah, hi, I'm here too. Thank you." She was the true diva of the family. Yeah. And she was great. She was in, do you remember she was in Rose and Cavalier, and she was in La Boheme in Santa Fe. She had her own prop number. She was isn't Musetta's dog called Lulu?
Lulu, no, that's supposedly him.
Oh, that's supposedly him. Well, I think it became Libby. And she had a little red hat that matched Musetta's hat.
Oh no.
And a waiter came and carried her across on a silver tray, carried her across the stage.
Well, I always loved it because you would hold her in your hands and sing, and she would sing back to you.
You throw her head back. Oh, yeah.
I know, that was my favorite thing, Libby singing with you. That was
I know.
sweet. So, and you were a winner of what was then called the Merola Grand Finals.
Yes.
Yes.
I won the Schwabacher Prize.
You are a Merolini. That's what you are.
I sure am. It started it all. Merola started it all. Because, you know, I went to Merola just after I had gotten my second master's degree at Manhattan School of Music, having failed to impress John Crosby enough to get into the Young Artist program and not getting into Wolf Trap. But I think something clicked with me and Merola. And so the minute I graduated, I went out to San Francisco. I'd never been to California before, having grown up in Texas and then living in New York, but I'd never been to California. And I won the jackpot of homestay because I got to stay with, you know, Samira and Dick Baruti, and they were my Merola parents. And they lived on, you know, Russian Hill, and it was just a dream.
And you're still friends with them today.
Yeah. Yeah. And it, you know, it changed, they all changed my life. Bruce and Fran Walker, all those people who supported us so generously and so thoroughly, both musically and financially, and, you know, all the opportunities we got. And again, I made lifelong friends in that group, of course. Now, the productions that we didn't really hold much opportunity for me. We did Johnny Schicchi, Suor Angelica, and Don Pasquale.
Yeah, not much.
Not real lyric mezzo heavy, but
no.
I spent the whole summer. I learned Octavian that summer, and I learned Componist that summer.
Oof.
So I think that the powers that be sort of were impressed with the fact that I took the opportunity to get as much music into my head, because I mean, you know, I was singing La Cesca in Johnny Schicchi, and, you know, one of the nuns. I didn't have a real taxing summer musically in that way, but I just soaked up. Craig Rutenberg was there coaching, and then the very cool thing is that at one point during the summer, the you of that time came to us and said, okay, I think it was Christine Bullen, came to us and said, we've stumbled into some grant money. There are some people who are willing to give grants to the Merolinis. And so what we need you to do, said to all of us, draw up a Christmas list of what, if you could have anything and it required grant money, what would you want? And I thought, I mean, I had just started dipping my toe into the whole role of Octavian, you know. And I said, I wrote my grant proposal and I said, I want to study Octavian with Christa Ludwig. And I researched how much it would take for them to fly me to Vienna, and how much to put me up in a hotel for 3 or 4 days, and how much to fly me back to New York. And I submitted this whole grant and they approved it.
Oh my goodness.
And it got even better because that following fall, she was going to be in New York, and she had an apartment in New York. So rather than having to spend $1,000 flying to and from Vienna, I had to take a taxi to 57th Street.
All right.
And she gave me 3 days, 3 days of Octavian.
Wow.
And I remember her lying on the sofa in her high-rise apartment in Carnegie Towers, you know, right next to Carnegie Hall. And she had this highfalutin, fantastic high-rise apartment. And she had on a black Angora sweater and black pants. And she reclined on this black leather sofa and sang the Marschallin and Sophie at this, you know, in my scenes that she was coaching me. And it was marvelous. And I still have her markings in my score. So that was a great gift from Merola that has stayed with me throughout my entire career life, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Merola, Merola has made lots of dreams come true, I have to say.
My gosh.
Yes.
And
indeed.
it was after that, you know, I remember the night that they announced the grand finals, my parents had come.
Oh,
And I was standing on stage, and I think I had sung an aria from Cherubin, and I sang the evening prayer with Janet Williams. And I remember that. And then back then it was like the Miss America pageant. They gave 5th place, 4th place, 3rd place, 2nd place, and then 1st place. And that's how they read them off. And there were cash prizes. And so they were reading them off. 5th place went to so-and-so, 4th place. And by the time they got to 2nd place, I said, oh gosh, everybody I already thought would win has already gotten one of these awards. Who in the world is it going to be? Because I knew it wasn't going to be me. I hadn't, you know, really proven myself, I thought. Then they said, and 1st prize this year goes to Susan Graham. And I felt like I had won Miss America, because I had no idea. I was shocked.
no.
And I saw my parents, you know, my parents were in the wings by the time I came off the stage. And I just remember running into their arms, and they were so excited, and I had no idea. But it was the first time, Sheri, that I had the thought that I dared to think that this might actually work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That if Merola, if those people believed in me that much, and that was going into the 87-88 season. And that was the year that I got a little opera news feature, one of the 10 to watch. And then there was, I started winning competitions in New York. And that's the year that I won the Met competition in the spring of 88. So, but it's like Merola planted the seed, and then all this stuff grew out of that.
Yeah.
In me too, in my head, you know, I finally got the confidence to think, dare I think this thing might work? You know, I still in my head was just a little girl from Texas who really didn't belong there.
I know. I think there's always that moment that in all our careers, those of us who are lucky enough to have a career, I think we all have to come to that moment, right? When you go, you know what? I think I can do this. I think there is always that moment for everybody.
Yeah, I think I can. And miraculously, some other people think I can too.
Yeah.
And that really that lifts you up so much. It gives you confidence. I always tell my students that confidence is such an enabler. It gives you wings. It's like Red Bull. Confidence is like Red Bull. It gives you wings. It lifts you up and makes you do things you didn't think you could do.
Yep.
But it's hard won. It's very hard won.
It is very hard won. That is true. Just if I'm sure some of the kids would love to get in and start asking questions. We did. I was your first Marshallin.
Oh my gosh, you sure were.
You were my first Octavian, and we did it. The first time we did it was with Ado in Minneapolis.
Well, we did several. Yeah, concert.
version.
I did it in concert a lot before I ever put it on stage, which I always tell people is a great way to learn a hard part like that.
Yes.
You know,
and that was fun. We were.
It really made it hard to learn all the talky bits after that, though, because I knew all the big parts, but then I had to learn all that talky part.
I know some of the kids. We were talking yesterday, and they were talking about one of the questions that one of them brought up, and maybe I'll steal it from them. What is the hardest role you ever had to learn?
Countess Geschwitz in Lulu.
See, that's what I said.
No question.
That's what I said too. That's what I thought.
In fact, it was not going in my head. This was, how many, 4 years ago? I think it was 4.5 years ago that we did it at the Met. It was not going in my head. And I said to Sarah Billinghurst at the Met, I said, Sarah, she's a very good friend, but also sort of my boss. And I said, I'm going to have to withdraw. It's not going in my head. I can't learn it. I can't do it. I'm not going to be ready for rehearsals. I'm going to have to quit. She said, you know, her New Zealand accent and very matter of fact, she said, oh, don't be ridiculous. You can't quit. You've got a wedding to pay for. This is true.
She had that right.
So
I thought it might be Berg, but I also thought it might be a Strauss role, because Strauss is not a walk in the park either.
It's not a walk in the park, but I mean, Capriccio was hard, but there's not that much of it, you know, and once you speak Strauss, It's
Yeah,
like a learning,
that's
it's
what
like
it
a
is.
language. You speak Strauss, you sort of understand where it's going to go.
Yeah,
Berg was a whole new language for me.
I
It
know.
was not easy.
I know.
Not
I've done the Lulu suite. I like that.
Girl,
I like that. I enjoy that.
I would have loved to have heard you do that because that's kind of awesome. I can
It's sort
imagine
of an
you in
awesome
that.
piece, ultimately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever sing the whole role?
No.
Look, Sheri, it's made for you. It was, I mean, good Lord. If
Well,
there's ever
I think
anybody
I'm a little
who,
long in the tooth now. I'm a little more geschwitzed now. I'm gespritzed. I need to be gespritzed. Yeah.
I know, gosh. But if there's ever anybody who was crazy enough with high notes to do that role, it had to be you.
Well, I will tell one little story before I think we're going to probably get started with some kids soon. But do you remember we were doing Rosenkavalier in Wales with the Welsh National Opera?
Yes.
And well, first and foremost, I will tell a story on you. Someone was asking like what you used for energy. And I said, the sad thing was that in Wales, they sold the Pillsbury cookie dough in tubs.
In a tub.
In those tubs. And we would take 2 spoons to the theater and a tub of that. And we ate Pillsbury cookie dough.
Not to mention, I mean, we were roommates. We were sharing a house.
And we were sharing a
in
house.
Penarth. And we also shared a car, didn't we? Or did we each have our own car?
You had the car. And you picked me up at the airport once. We'd had a long weekend and we'd both gone away, but you came back earlier. So you were picking me up and we got to a roundabout. Now we're talking England, right?
You got to go the other way.
Wales. And Susie said, you see those skid marks over there? I said, yeah. And she said, that's when I realized I was going the wrong way on the roundabout.
Last week. Yeah.
Last night. It was like last night.
That's right.
So, because we would be driving and we always listened to Queen in the car.
Yes, we did.
We listened to
Seems
Queen
so
constantly.
appropriate.
And I would just keep saying, stay to the left, stay to the left, stay to the left.
I know.
That
and
was
I was
my
driving
job.
a stick shift and the stick shift was on the left. So I wasn't used to doing stick shift on left. So I got tennis elbow. Do you remember that? I was like, It was hard.
I know that crazy car. That wasn't it a little orange thing or something?
I think it was blue.
Was it blue? It was a little, I remember. And we would then drive to the Arkvarknad. Remember
What's the Arkvarknad? I remember
that was the grocery store. That was the word for the grocery store. The Arkvarknad.
Right.
We would go to the Arkvarknad.
Tesco. The Arkvarknad.
And just doing Rosenkavalier with you there was that was so much fun. We had such a great cast.
Life-changing. And if you're ever going to do a huge opera for the first time, do it with 15 performances on tour with no prompter. You will never, ever learn anything better. I mean, right. You could wake me up probably in the middle of the night in a hurricane and standing on one leg with a blindfold on, and I could sing Rosenkavalier right now.
I know. Do you think it's one of the roles you studied the most thoroughly?
Yeah. Because I first sang the finale trio at something like age 22 at Texas Tech in a scenes program. Yeah. And it's funny because my college opera director was this wonderful man named John Gillis, who was everything in the Texas Tech opera department. And he created, Mary Jane worked under him, everybody, Terry Cook, Mark Haddock, Bruce Ford, all were his students. And we all came out of that program. And he was brilliant. And he directed this scene of Rosenkavalier trio. And I was sort of just doing things instinctively, like over here's the Marschallin, over here's Sophie, Octavian's stuck in the middle. He's uncertain, just the instinctive things that you do. For my 50th birthday a few years ago, he gave me a DVD of a lot of scenes that I did. And among them was that scene. And Sheri, all these years later, my instincts were the same. I mean, the staging for nearly every trio that I ever did was just, it hasn't changed that much because it's echt, it's real. The feelings were real. So the staging was simple and you were just performing the emotion of the piece. It was very cool.
So
So
cool.
thank you, John Gillis, in case he's watching now, which he probably is.
That's so nice. I know. I always think, I always say to kids, if you have time to do all the background research and all the, then you really know the role, you know? I mean, how many roles did you have to learn on the fly? Those are the ones that I don't remember.
Most of them.
And I don't remember them the next day almost. But
no, and it's the same with, concert repertoire recitals. I've had to cram so many recitals in my head so fast that sometimes it didn't stay very long. And so I always tell students, especially students who are in college still or graduate school, now is the time to learn your Schubert and your Wolf and your Schumann and your Strauss songs and your French songs and your Debussy and your Fauré. Now is the time, because you will never have this much time again in your life.
exactly.
God willing, and you can have a nice career,
Exactly. But that is finding time, I think, in the career is really hard particularly when you're busy, I did years when I was on the road 11 months out of a year. I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
if not more.
That's not easy. It's not an easy.
I remember when I finally got to the point where I started building in vacation time. Yes. And I would have a calendar and I'd put X's over like 3 weeks in August. I'd say, unless I was in Salzburg or Glyndebourne or Santa Fe. And then you don't have that luxury, but you have to find some time. It's hard. But and now, look, all we have is time now.
I know. I say to my singer friends, actually, if you can, enjoy this time. Learn the next few roles that you've got coming up. Get them done already,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's, of course, nobody.
Knock on wood that there will be a next few roles.
Exactly. Well, I think we're going to take some questions now.
Okie dokie.
So we're going to.
My life is an open book. Bring it.
Yes, indeed. I recognize someone, but I will let her introduce herself. Catherine.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Catherine Good. I'm a soprano. I'm also from Texas. I'm from the Houston area. I went to the University of Houston for my undergrad, and then I went to Michigan State University for grad school. And I'm going to be singing Lady with a Hand Mirror in Postcard from Morocco next summer.
Fabulous.
And just a small side note, when you were at TMEA this year, my mom was your escort. So she says hello.
I knew it. I knew I recognized your name.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I said to Sheri a minute ago, I know her. How do I know her? Tell your mom hi.
I will. Thank you. My question for you, what do you know now, or what have you learned throughout your career that you wish you had known when you were just starting out?
Wow. Well, it has to do with something that Sheri and I were talking a minute ago. The thing that I have now that I didn't have then is freedom.
Okay.
And freedom isn't easy to come by, especially when you're just starting out. Freedom is a byproduct of confidence, and confidence is something that grows. It starts with a seed when you're young, and it gradually, with lots of care and feeding and watering and lots of sunlight, hopefully a few good reviews along the way, it grows. And with confidence comes freedom. When I see, recently, the Met has been running those, each night they'll do a different production. And there for a week, they did like 3 or 4 of my shows within a week.
Wow.
I brought myself to watch about 2.5 of them. But it's funny because what I saw, different than how I feel in my artistic self now, what I saw back then was a little bit of fear. I could see it. Maybe other people didn't see it, I don't know, but I felt it. And I thought, I wish that in Damnation of Faust, I would have had the freedom that I had in Iphigenie, or Les Troyens. But the demands of a role are different. The demands of a production are always different, but you have to find your own path through it. And through that path, you have to find your own freedom of expression. Sometimes that means arguing with people, and that's really hard to do when you're young and you really just want to please everybody because you want to get hired again. I understand that. But artistically, the answer to your question is I wish that I had been braver when I was younger.
Great. Thank you so much.
That's a great answer. That's great. Yeah. Do we have someone else coming up with a question? I think we do, Miss Susan.
Okie dokie.
That's really, yeah, confidence gives freedom. That's for sure.
Don't you feel?
Oh, yeah.
You were always very free on stage. I felt. Did you always feel free on stage, Sheri?
Pretty much, because I was so ignorant, I didn't know any better. You know,
Sometimes
in a way,
ignorance is bliss.
in a way, that's true. Hello, madam. Hi.
Hello, my name is Gabrielle Barkiccia, and I am a mezzo-soprano from the Chicago area. I did my undergraduate at Northwestern University and also my master's, and I just graduated, and it's such an honor to be speaking with you as a young mezzo right now.
Oh, well, congratulations on your graduation.
Thank you so much. Oh, and I'll be doing Carabino in Figaro next week. Yes.
Carabino.
Good for you.
Yes. So my question is as follows. As a young high mezzo, it's a very, very specific question. How do you deal with people trying to fach you in different ways?
That's a good one.
You mean everyone always telling you you're a soprano?
Yes.
Pretty much.
Well, to thine own self be true is what I'll say. Are you tall?
Relatively.
5'1".
So, sorry?
I'm 5'7".
Okay. Well, I established pretty early on that trouser rolls were going to be a large part of certainly the early part of my career, because I'm 5'10", and I grew up kind of athletic, and I loved the gangliness of the young boy kind of trying to find his way, because you can do that in any of those roles, whether it's, I mean, even Sesto's probably the most sort of noble kind of grown-up guy, but Carabino, composer, even Octavian, all of those roles bring a certain physicality that I was always really comfortable with. And where my voice sat, the top was easy for me. I didn't have any low notes, but I was always a mezzo with no low notes. They didn't pay for my low notes. They didn't pay for my and the thing is, when you're a mezzo with high notes, that makes you special, because they hear mezzo and they don't expect you to be able to float above the staff. But if you can, that's very cool, because it sort of sets you apart and it gives you an expressive color that not everybody has. They might say, oh, well, that's why you're a soprano. And you can go, no, it's up there is a nice place to visit, but I wouldn't want to live there. That's kind of what I always felt. Plus, the package that I had was always high mezzo. It was the pants rolls. It was the Charlottes. It was, even a little bit of Rossini early on, which I did. I didn't love it, but I did it. But
Handel.
The Strauss and the Massenet was always, and look, Strauss and Massenet, they didn't distinguish between mezzo and soprano. Octavian in the score, it says soprano. Componist in the score, it says soprano. So, when I was in college, they didn't know what I was, because I had this freaky top, but I just knew that I was not comfortable living up there. So that was my big clue that I wasn't a soprano. Doesn't mean you can't, visit there a little bit. I really don't. I mean, the fach, if you're in America, it's not as important as it is in Germany. But so unless you're going to go to Germany and, become a fest singer in a house, which maybe you are, I don't know, but it's not really that important. I just always took role by role. If it's a soprano part, but it feels good, I didn't have any problem with doing it. I did. There was a recording that I made one time. It may have been my Berlioz recording. I can't remember, but they printed the whole first edition that they printed said Susan Graham soprano instead of Susan Graham mezzo soprano on the CD label. And this made me furious, because I thought that's setting expectations way too high. And people are going to expect a certain kind of sound or a certain, pop off high B flats with no problem, whatever. So, I just very insistently invited them to to correct that on the second printing, if there was going to be a second printing.
Well,
So really, I would just say it's on a part by part basis, and just whatever you feel comfortable doing.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Good luck.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Thank you. We're going to get someone else coming up to talk to you. And Handel became important for your life as well, a little bit.
Yes, but not till I was nearly 40.
Well, it was
and
Matthew's 50th birthday party where you sang
Well,
Dopo
that was
Notte.
before. No, I sang Con l'ali di Costanza,
Oh, was it that?
as you recall, the hardest aria ever written in the history of the world.
I thought you sang Handel at that.
I was Handel, and it was from Ariodante.
It was the Ariodante aria, that's right.
Yes,
Wasn't it?
and which is Dopo Notte is also from. But
That's
then, like a couple of years later, we did Alcina
Sure.
in Paris, and it was my first Handel, Renee's first Handel, and Natalie Dessay's first Handel,
Oh my God.
and it
Wow.
was the Paris Opera. So we were all Handel virgins together.
Well, this is Philippe.
Philippe.
Hello.
Hello,
You want to
Hi
introduce
there.
yourself? Yeah.
I'm Philippe L'Esperance. I
Bonjour.
am a tenor from Massachusetts. And next summer, I'll be singing The Man with Old Luggage and Postcards. My question is, from what you have seen, from when you've been in the business, what has changed for the best and what has changed for the worst?
In the business since when?
Yes, in the business.
Since she's been in the business?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Oh no, Susie, are you frozen?
I think so.
I think Susan has gotten frozen. She'll have to call back in. Yeah, so we'll get Susan back in, we will. Yeah, that's a very big question, you know, what has changed in the business. I think I'll be very curious to see what Susan thinks. I do think what's interesting when you're in the business long enough, you notice the fashion for certain composers, you know, and so the fashion for composers, and also you notice that the fashion for how you are going to perform with certain composers. And, you know, we had the cleaning up of the repertory, for instance, with Mozart, all because they used to do much more romanticized sort of versions of Mozart.
Right.
But then we had it all cleaned up, you know, and suddenly we had the Barenreiter versions and we all cleaned up our Mozart. So I think and of course Handel as well used to be romanticized tremendously too. But that's sort of how the Baroque came back into the business a little bit in the 70s as well. So I don't know, I think it's interesting to notice how musical fashions change. For
Right.
instance, when I was coming up, we're waiting for Susan and we're hoping Susan gets here. So yes, we're hoping she gets here. Faust used to be done all the time. In fact, I even got to do a Faust myself. I realized that was not my role, but anyway, I got to do one. Nowadays, I haven't seen a Faust scheduled anywhere in quite a few years, I'd say. You know, so that's sort of no longer in fashion, you know, and yet we do
Right.
see more Romeo and Juliet of Gounod. So I think fashions like that. So I think, yes, I think the adhering to more echt, shall we say, trying to be more realistic. For instance, one of the reasons I don't do Handel, that I never produced Handel in Merola, is that I don't feel like most of us can quickly just learn the sort of X style of the Baroque style. And you need really Baroque experts. And I sort of leave that to the I live in San Francisco where we've had Nick McGeegan and the Philharmonia Baroque Orchestra, and they do produce operas. And I just think if you're going to do Handel in this day and age, you have to do it echt. You can't do it romanticized anymore. So I've avoided it because I didn't think that's what we were set up well to do. We're more set up to do standard repertory. So that's one reason I don't produce Handel, because we have gotten into this place of trying to be more faithful to the originals of the original things. I actually got to sing Gluck with a actual Baroque orchestra. And I can tell you this, I was almost in a state of shock because yes, you're back. Now you've got to unmute somehow.
I can't hear you, Sheri.
There you are. There you are. I hear you.
I can't hear anything.
Oh, shoot. Can you speak? Can you speak, Philippe?
I can't
Yes.
hear you.
Hello.
She's not hearing us. Is the phone, what is it? Is your phone turned up? Phone volume, oh, she's left us again. She's left us again. I'm sorry. We're having technical difficulties here. We'll get there. We'll get there. Okay, so anyway, what do you think has changed? Have you noticed any change, even in your observations?
Well, it's only been about like 9 years training and 5 years being out in the real world. So, I mean, like really the most I've noticed is live in HD really has, even for the past 5 years, has really become much more of a talking point. At least from my undergraduate work to now in my postgrad and beyond, you're seeing a lot more young artist programs and companies talk about how to act and how to purport yourself in a way that will aid live in HD. It's something that I think a lot of singers in my generation and the generation before are dealing with and will deal with. That hasn't necessarily been the case in other past generations. So that's, for me, I feel like that's going to be a whole new, well, not whole new beast, but it'll be a different beast that we have to face coming up.
Well, yeah, I mean, we should have, when Susie comes back, we'll have to ask her about the HD diet, as they call it at the Met. There she is. Are you hearing us, Susan? No, I can't hear
We
Susan.
can't hear her. She can't hear us either.
Oh dear. We'll get her. We're gonna get her.
Maybe she didn't turn on her internet audio, because I know that asks you to do that when you come into the chat.
Did you turn on your internet audio? She probably can't hear me. Oh, well, I tell you what, I think we'll go to our next Merolini and get another question, and I'll try to be as Susan-esque as I can be for the moment. And we'll get you back in, Philippe, so that you
Great.
can talk to Susan. Oh, here she's back. Can you speak? Nope.
Oof.
She can hear you though. Can you hear us now? Nope. Darn. But we'll get you back, Philippe.
All right,
so
sounds
here's
good.
Celeste Morales. So Celeste, can you introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes, my name is Celeste Morales. I am from San Antonio, Texas, and I got my undergrad at Texas State University and my master's from Manhattan School of Music. And I am lucky and thankful enough to be in the Schwabacher Scenes program next summer, doing Vanessa by Barber and Suor Angelica by Puccini. So yeah, I do have a question. Should I just ask it?
Ask it away and we'll get you back and get Susan's opinion on it if we can. Go ahead.
Well, I'll ask you, Sheri. What was your favorite role to date?
Whew, that's a tough one. I have to say doing the Marschallin is a pretty nice event, being able to sing the Marschallin, just because when you get to it, you're not going to sing the Marschallin when you're in your 20s, right? You're just not. So by the time you're in your 40s, generally you might get to the Marschallin, and that's a pretty nice thing because you're sort of at the right age to have a little distance on romance. You know, you may have a little more distance on romance.
You have more experience, maybe.
Yeah, a little more life experience. And the Marschallin has some wisdom. She's not thoroughly wise, but she has some wisdom, which the great monologue in the first act is one of the great acting scenes that you'll ever get to do. That's just a great scene. And I have to say, I've done several Strauss roles, and the women in the Strauss roles are very complicated and very interesting because Strauss was a married man and he had a crazy soprano for a wife, right? So I think he understood women quite well. And so I think he wrote women, and Hofmannsthal wrote these women too, of course. But there's just something about the way Strauss writes for women. He loves women, you can tell, even though his wife may have been crazy. Yeah. So Susan is having some Wi-Fi issues, and we're going to get her back as soon as we can. So I would say, yeah, Strauss is definitely, and I'm sure Susan would say Strauss. Oh no, what did I do to myself? Chris, you'll have to help me here. I've done something
I
funky
can
to myself.
hear you.
I've done something crazy. But I think Susan would say Strauss would probably be one of her favorites as well. But I also wanted to ask Susan about her Berlioz, because Susan had a very special relationship with Berlioz as well. She's done the Dido, and she's also, of course, done Beatrice and Benedict. There she is.
Ta-da!
Connecting.
Yay!
She's asking you about
sorry.
your favorite role.
What?
Your favorite role.
It's a toss-up between Octavian and Didon.
The two things I mentioned, I said I would say she'd say Strauss or Berlioz.
Yeah.
Sheri got an
Yeah.
A++.
The internet in this house just completely went out. Everything, the TVs are dead, the phones are dead, the computers are dead. So I'm on my phone with cellular data right now. So I'm sorry that took so long. We raised it up from the dead. So what was that Philippe's question?
No, this is Celeste. Celeste, introduce yourself.
Okay. So my name is Celeste Morales. I am from San Antonio, Texas. Another Texan. So yeah. I did my undergrad at Texas State University, and then also I'm an MSM alumni. Currently living in New York City right now. And my question for you was, I know that you're a big, you appreciate art song, and I love that, because I think that sometimes as artists or opera singers, we get placed in a box, or we make it seem like we can only do this. And I think that art song has a lot to teach us, especially with learning a new role or finding different colors. It's a quicker snapshot versus an extended character. So
it's a 2-minute opera.
Yeah. And so my question is for you, is there ways in which you studied art song specifically and used whatever you took from learning art song into a role or an aria?
Yes. Sorry, I'm on the move. I got to get out of the line of traffic in that room. Yes, that's an excellent question too, because what you discover when you're singing in a recital is a level of intimacy that you can't get on the opera stage. And you can't, it's very it's more difficult with a 100-piece orchestra in the pit, and, a big distance of, the Grand Canyon between you and the audience, and the, all of the bells and whistles that go along with opera. When you're on stage in a recital format, it's you and the pianist and the audience. And it's not a solo act. It's not a duo act. It's an ensemble act, because the audience is a great part of the performance. Because if, as I'm sure you've noticed in your own experience, whatever mood the audience is in, it impacts what you do. And what the energy is that they give back to you affects your level of expression and what it is that you want to give them. And you can, in the spur of the moment, you can change on a dime. You can be as spontaneous as you can imagine, and your imagination is free to describe and express anything you want, and at a moment's notice. And that is something that you can go so far. You can go so far with that pianissimo that people are leaning forward in their seats to hear you. And if you can dare to take some of that just level of expression, I'm not talking just about dynamics, but just that intensity of expression back with you onto the opera stage, then you've gleaned something from one discipline that'll go into another. And that's really the fun part, I think.
Yay.
I love that answer. I love that answer, because it leaves curiosity to the audience, but also to you. As
Absolutely.
you go on stage every time, even if it's a role that you've done for years and years and years.
It changes every minute. I've done hundreds of recitals with Malcolm Martineau, and we know each other very well. And we'll have done the same program 20 or 30 times. And one of us will do something different. And it makes this chain reaction carry through even into 2 or 3 other songs, just because one of us felt something in that moment and the other one picked it up and ran with it. So it's the most fun ever.
I
That's
love
a
that.
great-
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Celeste. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Celeste.
We'll go on to the next. Oh, songs. I love the pink glasses. You're sort of doing Elle in
Oh, yes, Elle Woods.
Elle Woods.
There. Does that make me look more erudite?
Good. Hi, Magdalena.
Hi. Hi, my name is Magdalena Kushma, and I am a soprano from New York City. I just recently finished up my BA and BM from Oberlin. I'm starting up at Yale for my grad diploma. Next summer at Merola, I will be singing Barbarina and covering Susanna in Figaro. And my question
Fantastic.
for you, Ms. Graham, is thank you. You've had such a wildly successful career. And I'm curious, specifically prior to the COVID-19 crisis, during a busy schedule, how did you learn and prepare roles specifically in between 2 different productions that were close, scheduled close together?
Well, you're always, if you're lucky, you're always singing one thing and learning another, and that my brain never really worked well at that kind of multitasking. I was always, I do better when I can just focus on one thing. Like I can't even read magazines in the dressing room in between scenes. Because it takes my brain on another
Same.
trip. But I feel like if I don't focus 100% of the time, something horrible will go wrong. So, but in terms of learning, you just got to, these days, I used to do it all on my own because I always was on my own, I was always somewhere.
Sure.
And lots of times if I was working on music, learning something while I was performing something else, I would rent a piano or a keyboard to go in my hotel room or my apartment. And because I play the piano, so I would constantly be studying something else while I was, performing the other thing. And it's a tricky thing these days. In order to learn a new role, I enlist the help of, a great coach, a great pianist, and just drill it. Because these days I'm not as busy operatically, but I still have some difficult music to learn. So I get somebody to help me, just to bombard me with it. And I make recordings and I listen to it all the time. And, like that on airplanes, I've always got a new part or a new piece in my ear that I'm trying to learn.
Great.
Yeah.
We
Not
had
easy, but it's worth it.
We had friends, Susan, didn't we, that traveled with a pianist half the time.
Oh my
Oof,
gosh.
that gets expensive.
What?
That gets expensive.
It gets expensive, indeed. But we did know singers that did that. They traveled with a pianist. Yeah. So thank you, Magdalena. It's lovely to
Thank
see
you.
again.
Well, thank you.
Bye-bye. We'll get another bright, fresh face.
Sheri,
mean-
what did I miss with Philippe? I lost my whole conversation with him.
We were on the subject. Oh, I can't. Oh, here's a director. We have a director coming.
Hi,
It is.
I'm Audrey Chait. I'm a director from the San Francisco area, and I did my undergrad at Brown, and I also have an artist diploma from CCM. And my question is about contemporary opera. I know you've done several very formative world premieres, and I'd love to know what it's like to create a brand new role, and if there's any story that you would love to see turned into an opera.
That's a good one.
I have had those on the tip of my tongue, but of course I can't pull them out of my brain right now. But if I think of it, I'll get back to you.
Mm-hmm.
The joy of bringing a new piece to life is a particular thing, because it's very it's everybody working for the same goal. Everybody is in the same level of unknown, and we're all tossing ideas out. Every time I do a new role, even if it's just something that's new to me but has been existing for a long time, I usually come into it with really strong ideas about what the character is, or what she wants in this scene, or whatever. It starts to make sense to me early on. And in a new piece, you've got the composer there to weigh in on it. Normally the composer isn't there, but in a new piece, the composer usually is. So you want to make sure that you're building something that has his or her approval, and it fits in with what they, imagined the piece to be, or the character to be. The biggest new piece I ever did was Dead Man Walking, of course, of Jake Heggie. And the process for that was, oh my gosh, it was tear-jerking and emotional, and full of discovery, and full of we went places we never knew we could in the rehearsal room. We had a box of Kleenex on the table that was empty about 3 times a day because everybody would burst into tears. And it was just the level. We went to the depths of human emotion to try and tell this phenomenal story that is true, and when you feel safe, especially in an environment like that, with a piece like that, and you've got Sister Helen Prejean, you've got Terrence McNally, and you've got Jake Heggie, and you've got Patrick Summers conducting it, and you've got Joe Mantello directing it, and you've got a room full of Frederica von Stade, and amazing people, and everybody has the same goal, and you feel very safe in that environment. And I think safe as a director for you, I think creating a very safe, experimental place is very important. So that the whole team feels free. We're back to that theme of freedom again, to create and to experiment with, whatever the storytelling needs to be.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Sure. Good luck.
Thank you.
I think maybe we might be getting our Philippe back. We might.
Oh,
I love that name, right? Don't we love Philippe?
Philippe L'Espérance, oui.
Mais oui, c'est bien ça.
Ouais.
Ah, yes.
I'm
There
back.
he is, yay.
Hello.
I'm so sorry about the snafu before. I
Oh.
apologize.
No worries. It's happened to me multiple times on Zoom. It's a new problem that we're all dealing with.
I know, right?
Right. To that tune, sort of. Since you have started singing, or since you started your career, for better or worse, what do you think has changed the most?
Yeah.
Yes, I remember that question. You started to ask that question when it all went horribly wrong.
Yeah.
Gosh. Guidance. I feel like when I started, I had the luxury, people of my generation had the luxury of focusing on the music and the singing and the development of our craft. We didn't have to worry about social media, and we didn't have to worry about self-promotion, and we didn't have to worry about self-agenting, because there was a plethora of fantastic agents who had made it their lifelong goal to manage singers and build long careers. There weren't the economic pressures that there are today.
Yeah.
And the luckiest thing that happened to me is that I got, I had recording contracts, and the record companies took care of a lot of the promotion. Basically, the record companies were our social media back then.
Right.
Because they did all the in order to promote their records, they had to promote us. And so they took care of a lot of that stuff, back in the day when, Sheri and I were in Salzburg, all of the storefront windows had all of the pictures of all of the artists that were performing there that season. And the pictures were sponsored by their record label. So there was Deutsche Grammophon artists, and then there was the Philips recording artists who were on the buses, and then there were shop windows that had, the EMI artists, and it was just,
Wow.
it was a competition from the record companies to see who they could promote, and all we were doing is showing up and singing. So I guess what I think has changed is that you guys have a lot more on your plate that you have to take care of, that we sort of didn't really have to in that way. Don't you agree, Sheri?
Absolutely. That's true. The pressure of the social media is tremendous, I think.
Yeah, it's huge. And I always felt like I was in really good hands with whatever publicity people I had and whatever managers were there. And they weren't just, I'm not saying that this is the case now, but there are all kinds of managers. There always have been. But I feel like the patience and the luxury of taking time to build a 35-year career versus you're 25 and you're ready to sing Violetta.
Yeah.
It seems like people don't take the time to grow up, don't give you the time to grow up that we sort of had.
Right.
In general.
Amen.
So I think it's a luxury of time that we had then that doesn't seem to be as abundant now.
Yes, I think we were both still singing at the time when opera was expanding all over the United States, and every little city was getting an opera company, and now I'm afraid there's a lot is contracting, and so the business is contracting.
Well, and it gets back to that economic question, there especially now, there are so many, in COVID, there are companies that are going out of business that won't come back.
Yeah.
And it's very sad. And hopefully there won't be too many of those, but I just feel like we had patience.
Yeah. The luxury of time.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
luxury of time.
Now, let me try to think of something that's better now than it was then. Opportunity. Well, there are many, many more young artist programs.
Yeah.
We didn't have very many when I was coming up. There's a lot more mentoring opportunities. People like Sheri and me who are involved in young artist programs who are willing to, get down and dirty with you guys and share what we've learned. There's a lot more of that going on now. In my opinion,
Yeah.
maybe it's just because I'm at the age where all of my colleagues are doing it. Maybe that's just what it is. But yeah, I think that in a way there's a greater abundance of opportunities for young singers to get good training.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you, Philippe.
Great. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
All right. And guess what? He's a triplet.
What?
Yep.
Do the other two sing?
A little bit. Hi.
Are they all male? Are they all boys?
Almost. Hi.
Hi,
Hello.
my name is Johanna Will. I'm a German soprano. I did my undergrad in Hamburg, Germany, and I just finished my master's degree at Mannes School of Music in New York. And I will be singing Marguerite in a scene of Faust in the Schwabacher Summer Concert Series next year.
Fantastic.
So I have a rather specific question, I guess. I wanted to ask you about your workout routine, especially when you're traveling and really has a change, or what have you found to be helpful for singing? Or
It goes in phases. It has gone in phases over my life. There was a time when I was a runner. I've always been a biker, and there was a time when I was on rollerblades all over the place. In fact, I was the first rollerblader in Paris, France, and people looked at me like I had 3 heads. Do you remember that, Sheri?
I remember well.
Because I'm already almost 6 feet tall.
She's already tall, so when she puts those blades on, it's
exactly. I look like this giant alien from somewhere. I've just always enjoyed, being outside and being physical. I'm not very much of a gym person, but one of my favorite ways to learn music was running on a treadmill with earphones on, and because the learning of the music takes your brain away from the agony of the workout. But for the most part, I always had to be in some sort of decent shape because I was always doing pants rolls, and you got to be able to run around and jump out windows and hide under the furniture and sword fight and hang from chandeliers. So I always had to have a certain amount of, okayness. It comes and goes, quite frankly. Right now I'm in a big bicycling phase. I bike everywhere. So that's what I'm doing now. And I've always biked all over New York City. I have a bike in my apartment in New York, and I've always been my preferred method of transportation. It's a lot faster than a taxi.
Also, Susan, did you ever do yoga or anything like that?
I never had the patience. And plus my structure is somewhat encumbered. Like, I don't have good feet, so I never could balance very well. I couldn't do like the one-legged standing tree thing. Tree pose. Stop laughing.
Okay.
I always enjoyed more active things, is what I guess I'm just trying to say.
Yeah.
Plus, I found that running is very good for sort of channeling anger.
Mhm.
I remember I broke up with a boyfriend one time, and I was so mad at him that's when I started running. I was like, and I was sort of, you have your dialogue, and it's like, you son of a that got me through several miles at a time.
Thank you, Joanna. Good to see you. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, I like running too, because you could control your breath. It's like a little like singing. You would, whoops.
Uh-oh, wait 1 sec.
Uh-oh, we lost Susan somehow.
I'm back. I'm still here.
There she is.
I'm still here. I'm just checking my battery because I was told to check my battery. Hang on.
Have you got a cord handy somewhere?
I don't know. Oh, I've got plenty. Okay.
All right, good. Come back,
Now-
Susan, come back.
Oh, here I am.
There she is.
Okay, here I am. I got plenty.
Hi, Jessie.
Hi.
Hi, Jessie Mashburn.
Hi. My name is Jessie Mashburn. I'm a mezzo-soprano from Alabama. I got my BM from Oberlin Conservatory, and I just graduated with my MM from the Maryland Opera Studio at the University of Maryland.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Next summer, I will be singing Isabella from L'Italiana and La Zia Principessa from Suor Angelica and Marta.
Wow. That's a big summer.
Yes, I'm very excited. It breaks my heart that I can't be there this summer. It absolutely breaks my heart.
I know.
My question for you
Mhm.
is it's a specific question about kind of mezzo repertoire. I know that sometimes teachers will tell you that you need to grow into a role, you need to give it time. What's your advice for finding out what actually fits your voice? Because I'm only 24, I know that I still have a lot of room to grow, but I want to use this time to learn new repertoire, but I don't want to waste my time learning stuff that I might never sing.
Wow. Well, I don't have a crystal ball and I don't know your voice. So it's a little hard for me to speculate. However, I would just say that, you know, speak to people you trust who can know your voice well, like Sheri Greenawald, or your, you know, your teachers. And pretty often astute teachers can sort of help you sort of figure out where they think your voice might end up sometime. If you're singing Isabella and La Zia Principessa, it sounds to me like, you know, it's not a super high flying mezzo, but did you have some, am I correct in assuming that you've got some, you know, a decent lower register?
I think that's where my struggle is coming from, because I am singing things like Non più mesta pretty easily. I'm not quite ready to put them out into the world, but I'm singing them, and I have the high notes. I have a high C, I have a high D. So
good for you.
So I think it's a little bit.
I would say that at this point you're safe. You're 24.
Yes.
You know, if you enjoy bel canto, then look at things like, you know, if you think something you're going to grow into might be, you know, Capuletti or something like that, you can start looking at that. Or you know, what's that pants roll in Smetan in Anna Bolena? Or, you know, if you want to start with smaller roles, or any of the Rossini. I mean, use this time to learn Rossini if it's so easy for you. If you can sing Cenerentola and Rosina and Isabella, and, you know, let's say you've got some time on your hands now, perhaps.
Yeah, just a little bit of time.
Yeah, I mean, and you could just focus this time on strictly bel canto. Because I don't know if you're gonna, I mean, do you want to go into Verdi mezzo stuff? It doesn't really sound like that's what you're headed for at this moment.
I actually learned the judgment scene from Aida last year just for fun, just to test it out. But like I said, it's one of those things that it felt really great to sing, but
well, you know, who knows? Who knows in 10 years where you'll be? I'm not saying that you should learn all those, you know, Azucena and all of those things right now, because it's hard to know where you might go. But what well-known singers do you identify with vocally?
I don't know at this point, honestly, because I thought maybe at one point I was more like you. I thought I was more on the Marilyn Horne side, Stephanie Blythe.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I was about to say, yeah, Stephanie Blythe, but you know, Dolores Zajic is a whole other animal.
Yeah.
But you know, I would say the Marilyn Horne side sounds kind of applicable.
Okay. Yeah.
But you know, and she did a lot of French stuff. She did Carmen. She did Mignon. She and look at Berlioz.
She started as a soprano, didn't she?
Yeah.
She recorded as a soprano even.
Yeah. Yes, she did. But you know, you could devote this time to just make bel canto your friend.
My friend. Okay.
I was gonna say make bel canto your bitch, but I
knew exactly where you were going.
Stopped just short of saying that, didn't I? No, you didn't stop just short of saying that.
Make Donizetti your friend.
Make bel canto your friend.
I can do that.
But don't go too deeply. Don't delve too deeply into roles that you shouldn't do till you're 39.
Yeah, I want to keep my options open. I'm very young, but I have very little patience apparently.
Look at Verterre. I'm sure you've sung Valles pour mes larmes 1,000 times.
For my audition, yes.
You know, check out do you do the letter aria?
I've sung the prayer, and I just started looking at the letter.
Look at the
scene.
letter aria. See what that looks like. See what that feels like to you.
Okay.
Because Vale si quelle me larma and Señor Dieu, Señor are two different ends of the spectrum.
Absolutely.
And the letter scene sort of sits in the middle in terms of vocal demand and
okay.
You know.
Yeah.
Good luck. Sounds
Thank
exciting.
you. I'm excited. Thank you.
Good for you.
Next, we get another one. Yes, ma'am, they're coming. Yeah, Donizetti and Rossini, good for us all for a while, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, when you're young and if you've got the facility and the high notes.
We got an intermezzo.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. My name is Isabel Signore. I'm from Miami, Florida. I am a mezzo-soprano. I did my bachelor's at the University of Michigan, and I just graduated in May from Rice University in Houston.
I see.
My question is actually not singing related, but my boyfriend, who's also a Merola alum, and I are actually looking into getting a puppy. And we were, I was very curious, since you had your dog for 18 years, what was your experience like traveling with an animal? Because sometimes it can get a little complicated and internationally. And what was the hardest part of having a dog, which seems like there are none, and then what is the best thing that happened?
You have to be willing to, just put up with whatever comes along. If you choose to have a dog with you, you have to just deal with it. I mean, I guess finding apartments sometimes was difficult because some people didn't want dogs or whatever, but you sort of just deal with that. These days, I will say it's more difficult to travel and more expensive to travel with an animal than it was when I had Libby. Because it was before, and plus, security wise, since 9/11, it's more difficult. And you gotta streamline your carry-ons because the dog counts as your carry-on. So you can have your purse and your dog, but you can't have your giant carry-on bag that's full of all your scores and all your medicines and all of your accoutrements. You have to streamline yourself a little bit and get ready for the expense of buying a dog ticket every time. I think it's $125 at least for domestic now. I don't know. You probably have into that.
Yeah.
But she was in several operas with me, which was fantastic. She was a brilliant actrice. And the greatest thing about having a dog was having someone who loved you when you walked in the door at the end of a long rehearsal. And she was always happy to see you. And she was always funny. And she was a companion. When you're sad, she's there. When you're happy, she's there. When you're frustrated, she just wants to go for a walk. And it's the best. I miss her every day. And I'm this close to getting another one. And mind you, I lost her 13 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the hardest day ever is the day that she's not around anymore. That's the worst. But you have to think that the preceding 18 years were worth that one day of absolute agony and enough to, make me want to get another one. But it's great. It's awesome. Does not make your life any less complicated, but
unless you're going to England.
Well, now if they're chipped and you can get a blood test, you can take them to England now. I used to not be able to take them to England. I will say, Isabel, that if you need to have some backup person, a family member or a friend that you can leave the dog with, should you find yourself going to a place where you can't take them. Can't take them to Australia or Hawaii or New Zealand or Japan. Probably not even China, but not going to be going anywhere for a while with your dog on board.
Yeah,
but,
true.
What kind of dog are you looking for? What breed?
Well, I'm a big fan of dachshunds, miniature dachshunds. He is a fan of French bulldogs, but we're kind of a little wary on the bulldog side because with the traveling and them being brachiocephalic.
It's exactly what I was about to say, because they don't, it's hard enough.
Yeah. And we were actually looking into, I'm also a fan of miniature poodles because I've heard that they're really easy to train. So
they're so brilliant. But let me tell you, don't get a toy poodle is what you want.
Okay.
Toy is 10 pounds and you don't want to carry on a dog bigger than 10 pounds.
Yeah. 10 pounds sounds perfect.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Thank you for the advice.
Sure.
All right. That was the animal section of the interview.
So funny.
Of course, I brought up Liberty Bell. I'll never forget when you left Liberty with me in Amsterdam, and I took her out, and I thought to myself, how can this tiny little dog have this much urine to anoint every single tree, bush, everything for blocks and blocks? Liberty, she had to leave her message. She was leaving her.
You know, she's a diva. What can I tell you?
Yes. Hello, Ashley.
How are you?
Hi.
Introduce yourself.
I am Ashley Robillard. I'm a soprano from the Boston area, and I got my undergraduate and just finished my master's at the Curtis Institute this spring. And next summer, I will be singing Susanna in Le Nozze di Figaro.
All right.
Real stoked about. But I want to talk to you right now. We're all experiencing an unprecedented time with the COVID-19 crisis and all that's going on. And I was wondering what right now is bringing you joy and comfort during this time, and what you hope to bring from this time into your artistry when we come back. It's a bit different vibe from the puppies. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. If I had a puppy, you know what my answer would be. In fact, I'm looking right now. You can't find breeders. The minute a litter comes available, they're gone. Because everybody wants a dog right now. Anyway, what brings me joy right now is sort of cross-country bike riding. At the beginning of this, I could not sing. I had no air in my person. I felt like the wind had been knocked out of me and I couldn't physically breathe or sing for weeks. It was very hard. Gradually, I found my way back into music by playing the piano and playing, Debussy preludes and arabesques, things that are beautiful and gentle and a little bit sad. I needed to get that out. And singing it's been difficult for me to find. I mean, I've done it. It's not easy because I feel A, a little out of practice, and B, not as joyful as I would like to be when I start to sing. It's been a hard time. And it's very uncertain. As far as, I'll be completely honest with you. I don't know what it's going to be like me on the other side. For me on the other side, I think that, I have opera engagements at the Met next spring, but if those get canceled, if this, God forbid, thing lingers through the spring, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. I turned 60 in 2 weeks and I've had a very nice long career. I'm not saying I'm not going to do anymore, but I feel like I'd like to get back in the saddle after all this is done. And I'm hoping that, it would have to be something really interesting. I have engagements that hopefully will be on board will continue next year. Lots of concert engagements and lots of special I have an incredible world premiere piece that was supposed to be premiered this summer at Tanglewood and then go on tour all through the fall. That's obviously not going to happen. but we're hoping to just move it a year. That's a very special project. But in terms of, my operatic repertoire has already morphed into something that isn't mainstream anymore, but I don't know. I honestly don't really know what it's going to be like after this, or what I hope to even bring to my art. I want to find joy. I want to find joy, but I'm looking for it.
Do you find even more of that freedom in that transition into rep that is not as standard?
Yeah.
It's cool stuff.
Yeah. And, I'm supposed to do Dead Man Walking at the Met next spring. And that's very exciting to me because that's something that, lives in my DNA. I'm doing the part of the mother now. I'm not Sister Helen, but I'm doing the part that Frederick von Stade originated. And that part is that, when I talk about freedom on stage, that is one of the ones that really comes to mind, because there is no vanity in that part. You don't have to, you can just express, and half the role is wailing in sorrow and mournfulness. And to have the freedom to just let that fly is so gratifying. And I think if I get to do that, that's going to be a great outlet.
Be cathartic.
Very cathartic. Yes, ma'am. That's true. If it, we'll pray that it happens.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Ashley. Thank you. We're going to get
It's
another
hard truths, Sheri. They're hard truths.
I'm retiring.
I know.
I think I picked a good moment. Aha, we have another mezzo.
Oh, yay.
Mezzo party.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Nicola Prince. I'm a mezzo-soprano, and I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area. I went to SFCM for my undergrad ages ago. And my question and next summer I'll be singing The Foreign Singer from Postcard from Morocco. And my question for you is, do you think it's important for artists, young artists especially, to focus on a specialty or to kind of pigeonhole in one way? Or do you think it's more advantageous for singers to broaden our abilities in terms of genres of music, of styles of music? Is it good to be able to sing Baroque, new music, and bel canto? Or do you think it's smarter to just kind of focus in one area of a specialty?
I think that versatility is an asset, always. First of all, I'm a person who always starts from the artistic side of things when making any decision at all. Artistically, versatility keeps you supple. It keeps your voice supple. It keeps your mind supple. It keeps your level of expression always inventing and always discovering and always going down different paths. And then there's the obvious commercial aspects that the more you can do, the more hireable you are.
Yeah.
And I mean, tell me why you're asking this question.
Feedback that I've received is that it is from agents that I've auditioned for is that it's better for me. I was told to kind of stick in more of a pants roll place, not necessarily because of vocal type, just because I'm a tall, athletic mezzo.
Yeah, I hear you.
Legs.
I'm a tall guy, and so they said it would be advantageous for me to just kind of focus my attention in this one way.
Do you like that music? Do you like those roles?
I do, but I like every role. I like all music. And so, yeah.
I mean, okay, let's see. How old are you?
29.
You're 29. Perfect. When I was your age, I was singing Stefano, Hansel, Cherubino, Charlotte, Rosina.
It's across the board.
what's that guy's name? Tebaldo in Don Carlo with his two-line aria, his two-word aria. Il re, small part, pants roll, Don Carlo. Giulietta in Tales of Hoffmann. You know, you don't have to just do one thing. You have to sort of stay in your lane and voice type, but you certainly don't have to choose to only do pants rolls. You know, Dorabella. Perfect example. I mean, do you like singing Mozart?
I think Sheri thinks I'm supposed to say yes.
Oh dear.
I have feelings about Mozart. I like some Mozart operas. I'll say that. A handful.
Okay.
Well, what's interesting to me, Susan, is that back when I was starting into the career, and we're talking early 70s, right?
Yeah.
I was working at the time with Raymond Lepard, who was quite famous at the time because he had revived the Baroque operas by doing these more romanticized versions of.
Right, he beefed them up.
Yeah, the Cavalli operas mostly. And Ray at the time said to me, you have to specialize. So he was saying, specialize. And so in a funny way, your career sort of does.
But you didn't.
But that was a long time ago. And now things are so different with television, with the DVD broadcast. Don't you feel that singers have to be more versatile in general?
Yes. Yeah. You have to, you know, especially nowadays, you know, a lot of my young artists at the LA Opera, all of them have been presenting living room concerts. So not only do they have to self-produce and self-direct and do all the technical direction also, but they've got to then be presenters. So they've got to be an on-air personality as well as a singer. And just versatility within that little spectrum of the craft, not to mention, okay, are you going to sing Handel? Are you going to sing Mozart? Are you going to sing Rossini? Are you going to sing Strauss? Are you going to sing Massenet? Are you going to sing Berlioz? Why can't you do all of that?
I agree. I definitely agree.
You know, if you're tall and, you know, Emily D'Angelo comes to mind. She's tall and perfect for Octavian. And she's one of the best doorbellas I've ever seen. And I don't know what all else she does, but I bet she can do anything she sets her mind to. And, you know, when you're, I just think that the more opportunity you give yourself, the better off you are. My audition package, I think it was Stefano, it was Cherubin, it was Composer's Aria, it was Una voce poco fa, and something from Versatility. Because I didn't want to just offer pants rolls because, you know.
Susan,
I once went to, you'll appreciate this, Nicola. When I was about your age, I auditioned for the Hawaii Opera. I was in a cattle call audition at Cami Hall in New York. And I walked in and they were casting for Così fan tutte in February in Honolulu. I really wanted that job. I really wanted it. So I sang Smanie. And the guy looked at me and he said, well, that's very good. How tall are you? And I kicked off my shoes and I said, 5'5"? He said, I don't think you're 5'5". I didn't get the job because I was taller than everybody else in the cast. But I was very disappointed to not get to go to Hawaii in February that year. But, you know, I wanted to have that versatility. I wanted to be able to sing the part that he was casting for if I wasn't the right size, whatever. But yeah, I always think that, you know, I've done I've done Monteverdi, and I've done something that the ink is still drying on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I love early music. I love early music. And when I discovered Handel, it was like a whole world came open to me. And that level of freedom of expression and humanity and intimacy that Handel wrote so beautifully was like, a smorgasbord for me once I finally got to experience it. But, I like Strauss just as much, obviously, and Berlioz. It's like only eating one food all the time.
Yeah, right.
I think we have to move on to the next.
Okay, sorry, Nicola. I rambled on too long.
Goodbye, Nicola. Somebody's coming. Something great.
It's coming.
Did you have a lot of different audition packages? I'm just curious. I basically didn't. I had one package.
Yeah.
For the whole career, basically.
I sang parto. Basically, I only sang parto, and then they never wanted to hear anything else.
There you go.
It's so long.
Once you've sung parto, you've sung everything.
Exactly. It has everything in it.
Oh, hello there.
Hi.
Hi, Gabriel.
Hello. I've been told to say that I have the last question. So I'm Gabriel Hernandez. I'm a tenor. I'll be singing Mr. Owens in Postcard from Morocco next summer. Very excited. And to piggyback off the audition talk, I just wanted to know what your most memorable audition experience was and how you prepared for that.
Wow. Well, as I was just telling Sheri, I usually offered parto because I won the Met competition with that. So I always felt very confident taking it into auditions. And, it shows everything. It shows pathos and legato and long lines. And then there's that coloratura bit at the end that shows off and high notes and everything. So I always felt good about offering that. But I remember I was auditioning for a fellow named Lotfi Mansouri. And I think I was auditioning for La Clemenza di Tito, but for the role of Agno. And Frederick von Stade was going to sing Sesto, which I don't think I knew at that time. But anyway, I'm at Merkin Hall in New York City, and I'm singing Parto, and I'd sung it a billion times. And there's a certain point in the second section where I just blanked out. I just lost the train. And I went, oh, I stopped. And I went, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Let me start that again. And I got to the same point again, and I blanked out again. And Lotfi was kind of like shaking his head, and I was just like, oh no, I've just blown it. I'm never gonna. And I sort of schmeiced through it the third time. And then I got to the final section where it was just all the coloratura, and I was fine. But I walked out of that audition so dejected, and I didn't know anything for weeks, but I got the job because he didn't care that I forgot it. He only cared what I sounded like. And actually, when I hear auditions now and people get so freaked out if they make a mistake, yeah, I want you to know your stuff and get it right, but I'm listening to how you sing. I'm not grading you. So that was one. And then another very memorable parto audition was again at Cami Hall, and I was auditioning for Stephen Wadsworth, fantastic director, of course, always thinking outside the box, Stephen Wadsworth. So I was up there on stage. Stephen Blyer reminded me of this recently because he played that audition for me. And I'm singing it. I sang it perfectly. I was so proud of myself. And Stephen says to me, okay, can you jump off the stage? And, there was that floor part that was in front of the little stage. It was like a tiny auditorium. Remember, Sheri? And I jumped. So he said, now come down into this open floor area, and I want you to do the aria again, but this time don't sing. And so I kind of, Stephen Blyer starts playing it, and I start kind of Marcel Marceau kind of pantomiming it. I didn't know what I was doing. I did not get that job.
Oh,
I
those
guess
are
long,
good
long story
stories.
short is you go into auditions and you just try to enjoy yourself. Because I've had so many people go, how do you do auditions? And I always kind of just felt like it was a chance to perform. It was just a chance to sort of have fun and show off. Not that, you know, I've never been a real stranger to showing off, but it was always felt like kind of fun to me.
Hear, hear. Philippe, thank you so much for your question.
Thank you, Gabriel.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Philippe, I call him
Take care.
Philippe. Everybody is Philippe now. Everybody. I have some announcements to make, Susan.
What?
But I think that maybe I should thank you first.
Okay.
You know, Susan has been very important in my life. She, like I say, she was my first Octavian. She was my favorite Cherubino. And I watched your Iphigenie en Tauride was one of my favorite things ever. And your Didon was rather beautiful, I have to say. So I've seen you in recent years, but I know you from your babyhood too.
Yes,
and
indeed.
You're one of the great figures. You're also, she doesn't know who Pearl Mesta is, but anyone who's more my age will know who Pearl Mesta was. Pearl Mesta was the hostess with the mostest. That was the thing they would say about her. She was the hostess with the mostest. And you have always been the hostess with the mostest.
Oh, back at you, girlfriend. I'm telling you.
Well, we can't thank you enough. Merola thanks you, everybody, and all the wonderful Merolini thank you.
Well, I want to say one thing before you get rid of me, that, you know, how long have you been in your position at Merola? And
It's 2002. So
18 years. And I've seen that program flourish under you in a way that is pretty phenomenal. I mean, you're not only the administrator, you're the casting person, and you're the voice teacher, and you're the mama. And I just think that 18 years of young artists have been so lucky to have you.
I love you.
I love you too.
You're my girl. You're my girl. Thank you. I can't look at you now.
I know.
So, but I will announce some events coming up for Merola. We have the Zheng Chao Memorial Benefit tomorrow, Thursday, July 9th at 6 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And you have complimentary admission to this year's party, and you can watch it on YouTube. The celebration features performances by mezzo-soprano Catherine Cook, who was in Merola in 1990, bass baritone Ao Lee, who was one of my kids in 2010, tenor Wu Yun, who was in 2018 and will be back next year, and many more. And special remembrances will come from mezzo-soprano Frederica von Stade, composer Jake Heggie, and author Amy Tan, amongst others. We also, on Friday night this week, meet the young artists. It's a member-only event, and it's on Friday, July 10th at 4 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And you will meet the young artists online, and please become a Merola member now. And for full details of all these events, please go to the Merola website at merola.org/calendar to find out what we're doing. Again, I can't thank my friend Susan enough. She is a star and a fabulous human being. And let's hope she can ride that bike to Joyville. Let's hope that happens soon. Okay, much love. Bye. Keep smiling.